Hi, I'm Gil with Master Tool Repair. Today we're going to talk about what happens, what do you do when you have an air compressor and the manufacturer in their infinite wisdom has decided to make the pump obsolete. NLA, you can't get it anymore. Do you throw the entire air compressor away? No, you do not. We're going to swap it out with something that's very, very similar, and it's easy to do. Doesn't matter if it's a stationary unit, electric unit, or a gas-powered one, the repair is the same. So let's get started. This pump happens to be a Quincy pump. It's a great pump, but Quincy decided to not manufacture units for construction or home use. They're just back in industrial. So it's become difficult to acquire this pump. This pump's got a busted valve plate, at least in gaskets, and we're going to put on here an air compressor pump that's very, very similar in CFM, cubic feet of air per minute. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take it apart. Actually, we're going to just disconnect the transfer tube. On this particular one, it happens to be 7/8 inch. It's a steel braided tube, these are great because they don't kink like a copper line. By the way, you can swap your copper line out for one of these. We have this on our website. Just all you have to have is a flare fitting. So the first thing you do is you take that off. Now this particular one has a belt guard on it that we need to take off, and we're going to remove the belt guard after we figure out what size bolts they've decided to put on here. Looks like good old 13mm, 1/2 inch. Okay, one of the first things, modifications you're going to know, you'll find out by the time you put it all together, is this belt guard is held on by a little L bracket through one of the bolts in the head of the pump. Your new pump may be higher, could be lower, but you can bolt the sides into the frame here, but we'll have to see what happens here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to lift off the belt guard. So that's that. We're going to roll off. Now you're going to lose it this way. There's a couple of different ways you can do this, but simply we're going to take the belt off. Roll off the flywheel. You can use a screwdriver, whatever. It just pops it off. That way it'll be a little bit easier to take the mounting bolts off the pump instead of it straining against the belt. So we're going to save the belt. By the way, also the belt may have to change. The flywheel size. This is a good size flywheel. I don't have a tape measure over here, but this one probably looks to be a good 14 inches. The new one I believe is 10 inches. So that's going to change things up, and what we're going to have to do is on the new pump we're going to have to determine the maximum RPMs that your new pump is designed to run at. There's going to be a range. It's going to say between 650 and 825 RPMs. So you're going to take your motor, whatever motor you have, you're going to have to find the RPMs of your motor. It's going to either be 1725 RPMs, 3450. That's pretty typical electric motors. Gas engines, about the same thing. 3425 is what most of these run. So your engine's going to be turning at whatever RPM that is. You have to find out from the motor. It's going to have a pulley on it. It's going to have a small pulley and a big pulley. So let's take a look at that. Here we are. We have a small pulley. That's the engine pulley, electric motor pulley. We have the large pulley on the pump. So you're going to need to measure those and get the measurement first. Next thing is to take off. We're going to take the mounting bolts off. So you'll have to figure out what size the bolts are. Happens to be 1/2 inch. And you just remove the nut. Fortunately, it has one of those self-locking nuts. So that was pretty easy to take off. You're going to do the same thing with all 4 bolts. Typically, these pumps are attached with 4 bolts. Again, I'm not going to bore you with removing the bolts, so we'll cut out and come back. With the mounting bolts removed, now we are going to simply lift the pump off the frame. There you go. Now you have yourself a nice boat anchor. Now, with this particular gas-powered air compressor, we pressure washed it and degreased it before working on it, because these units, they get really greasy out in the field. So it makes it a lot easier to work with. Of course, I've got these nice gloves on. Don't want to get grease on my fingernails. I want to keep the wife happy. You know what it's like when you come at her with lobster claws. Doesn't make her so happy. So here we have a very clean base plate. And now I'm going to go get the pump that I'm going to put on here and tell you a little bit about it. This is a Schultz MSL10 pump. That doesn't mean anything to you. It just happens to be a pump we have here. Sell a good number of them. Let's take a look at the mounting holes. Oh sweet. Guess what? Mounting holes line up perfectly. Give you a better shot of that. Actually, you don't need to see it. Just no, I'm telling you, it mounts up. I'll show you. Here we go. 1, 2. Doesn't get any easier than that. I'm going to throw some washers on here because the holes are elongated so you can adjust it. And I don't want this thing sliding around, but that makes life very easy. A lot of these pumps are designed so they're a little bit interchangeable mounting holes wise. This one we just happen to get lucky. So the first thing is, if the mounting holes don't line up, you have to drill them. How do you drill them? Well, the first thing you do is you have to make sure that your flywheel lines up with the pulley on the motor. So let's take off the easier said than done. This particular pump has a tapered shaft, and with the tapered shaft, it needs to wedge itself on here. This is not, there we go, normal left hand. It's a right-handed bolt, so I thought for a second there that it was going to be a left-handed bolt. That's on a lot of drill chucks, but it's not. Okay. If I did this every day, I would know that, because most of these go in the same direction, like gas motors and electric motors. Okay, so we're going to put the flywheel on. Like I say, it's a tapered shaft, so I'm going to get that on there. I'm going to put the flywheel bolt back on. Your pump that you decide to use may end up having the flywheel already installed. If it has the flywheel already installed, no worries. You just simply, first thing you do, you don't bolt it down on the frame like I did. Like I said, this pump has some movement that way. It has elongated holes. So I'm going to take a look, and I'm going to use a straight edge. And with the straight edge, I'm going to make sure that the pulleys line up. So let me get the camera around here so you can look at it. All right, see, you have motor pulley, you have flywheel pulley. We need to make sure that it's going to line up straight. So far, no dice. Do we have enough leeway within that? Well, actually we do not. I would have to drill out the frame more. So you have a couple of options. The options that you have, you can slide the electric motor pulley so that it lines up with the flywheel pulley. And you can try that first. So let's see what we can do. Well, that wasn't successful. On these gas engines, look at the shaft. It is so rusted, it's not funny. I'm going to break that sucker. Plus, I don't have enough room to do that. So what's the next best bet? With this particular frame, for this motor, they have 2 mounting holes. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? They have it for an electric motor or a gas engine. I can slide that over there. Now if I come to the other side, don't get dizzy on me. Same thing here. I'm going to move this thing over to the other mounting holes so that hopefully this is more in line with the flywheel on the pump. Okay, well guess what did not work? still does not line up. That means that I'm going to have to move this. We're going to have to take the Allen wrench to be able to remove the set screws or loosen them up sufficiently. And then we're going to probably have to change up the motor pulley anyway based on the RPMs. And we're going to show you a calculation, and I'm going to give you a link to a handy dandy online calculator that'll help you to be able to figure out what size pulley you need to put on your electric motor or your gas engine. As you can see, this flywheel right here is much smaller than the original. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a gear puller on this, and I'm going to try to take it off without breaking it. Ha ha! That's not going to happen, I guarantee you. Okay, I think we're recording. Got the handy dandy gear puller on here. Now we're going to try to take it off. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, we've already broken the pulley. Hey! Well, I knew that was going to happen. Typically, this happens most of the time. As you can see, finally got the motor pulley off. By the way, I saved you all of the cursing since this is a G-rated film and YouTube video. I'm going to polish this off so we can get the new flywheel on here, the new motor pulley on here. But I knew it was going to be the wrong size because this is a smaller flywheel. That means this is going to spin actually faster than we want it to, and I know it's going to be faster than this. So next we're going to do the calculation for you, and then we're going to determine what size pulley we need. This is the most important step. Okay, now we need to polish up the crankshaft so we can slide the pulley on. I went ahead and calculated the size of the pulley. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to also post a link on this, how it works. But this is a 3/4 inch shaft on the motor, and determined that I need a 3-inch pulley within 1/8 of an inch. So here we have the 3-inch pulley, and we're going to slide this on here, but we don't want to have to fight against the rust. So we're going to clean this off and attach the pulley. Alrighty. By the way, make sure you use eye protection when you're doing that. As you can see, it slides on nice and easily now. What we're going to do is we're going to line it up so that we have the correct alignment between here, which is the flywheel. This pump I still have loose, so I can move it a little bit, but not a whole lot, to be quite honest with you. I don't get much play with this particular pump. So that's as much. Plus you got to make sure that it's going to clear the belt guard here. So you want to pull it off a little bit because you're going to have to slide the belt guard over top of the flywheel. So you want to make sure that you have some clearance. So that's about where it needs to be. Next we're going to line this up. We want to go center line to center line. So as you can see, it's going to have to come out some. Make sure the motor is square. So you're going to have to put it like this, make sure it's square. But you're going to go center to center. So you're going to basically just eyeball this until you can get it straight, so your belts are going to end up being correct. And what I like to do is to simply get a Sharpie, and once I get it lined up like I want, I'll go ahead and mark it with a Sharpie right here so that I can get it perfect. It's about where I want it, so I'm going to go ahead and make a mark on this side and this side. That way, once I put the set screws in there and tighten those, it doesn't move. Okay, the pump's on there. Got it bolted down, and we have some play in the gas engine. By the way, if you have an electric motor, you're also going to have play on that as well to be able to slide it back and forth. That's typically where the adjustment is. You don't usually adjust the pump. But as you can see, got a lot of play, But this belt is way too big. Why is the belt too big? Because the old flywheel was close to 13 inches. This one's 10 inches. The old pulley was over 4.5 inches. This is like 3 1/8. We're gonna have to get a new belt. And there's also a great handy dandy belt calculator that I'll show you as well, how to calculate what size belt you need. Yes, you can take a cord, wrap it around the outside diameter, lay it out on a tape measure, and find out what it is. But that's a royal pain trying to keep the cord on the outside edge, keep the tape measure. I mean, there's a way to do it that's kind of a scientific way. It's not real hard, and it's an online calculator. So we're going to use this. By the way, if your pump, which most of them have, is a 1/2 inch wide belt or 4L belt, then your pulley for your gas or electric motor or engine needs to be a 1/2 inch pulley as well. When you get your new pulley, you're going to have to determine the inside diameter of the pulley on the motor that you have, and also the outside diameter. Now, this particular pump, this one, the ideal RPMs on this right in the middle is 1100 RPMs. Okay, this MSL 10 Max pump, it runs anywhere between, I don't know, 900 RPMs and 1250. So 1100 was a good, it's not going to run it too fast. You don't want to run it at the max RPMs, and pumps typically have a minimum and a maximum. It's great to put them around 60% of what it should be in the middle there, and that's what we're going to use. So it'll run at the optimum RPMs, keep it cool, but deliver the most horsepower. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get a belt that actually fits. Okay, 45 inches is what we need. Like I say, we have some play between the engine and the pump. All we need to do now is pull it apart and make sure we have no more than a 1/2 inch deflection in the belt. And when I say 1/2 inch deflection, I mean when you push it down, you have no more than a 1/2 inch. But you want a 1/2 inch. You want between 0 and a 1/2 inch. Ideally, 1/2 inch is great. Any more than that, it's going to slip. If it's too tight, it's going to wear out the bearing either on the engine or the motor or on the pump itself. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spread it apart, and then we're going to take our wrench and we're going to tighten up the mounting holes for the pump. Actually, it's going to be for the engine. You can make a special device for this for pushing these apart. You can get like a turnbuckle in the middle and spread them apart. If you're going to be doing this a lot, if you're not going to be doing it a lot, which I don't think you are, you could simply pull the engine, pull the motor, whatever, put your wrench on top. If you had an electric motor, same difference. Pull it back so that you end up with a 1/2 inch deflection. Tighten that bolt in the back up first. Nice. I'd end up pulling it back a little bit more, but what I'm going to do probably, we've got a brand new belt. I'm going to let it break in, and then I'm going to check it after I run it for a little bit to make sure it hasn't loosened up. Plus you have this paint, which is going to wear off a little bit. Let's tighten up the rest of the bolts. Next, we need to connect the supply tube. So what we're going to do is we're going to we took this out of the old pump, which is a flare adapter. Pulled it out of the head of the pump. Put some Teflon tape on it. Oops. 2 or 3 good wraps. We're going to screw this into the, look at this. Perfect example of what happens. It's a lot bigger. I think that's 3/8 MPT, and we got a 1/2 inch hole. So we're going to have to get a 1/2 inch adapter, or we'll have to get a 1/2 inch flare adapter. Let's see what I have in the shop. Just happen to have a 1/2 inch flare adapter. in my spare parts bin, so I don't have to run out and get a bushing adapter. So I'm going to simply screw this in here. Nope, not the right size. 7/8 is what it needs to be. So I need to find my 7/8 inch wrench and finish it. Now the transfer tube is flexible, and that's a good thing about it. But is it flexible enough to do what we need it to do and clear this head? If not, we have to get creative. So let's see if I've got enough. It's pretty tight. I don't know if this is going to work or not. As you noticed, we only had so much. Oh, look. It is going to work. Just barely. Now, if it didn't work, I could have always run and picked up a 90-degree flare adapter. Of course, that's not the right wrench. And a 90-degree adapter would have allowed it to go down, and I could have come up on the other side. So just because it doesn't work the first time doesn't mean it's not going to work by some other configuration. So we'll put this on here. The great thing about these braided transfer tubes, if you have a copper tube, you're going to have to do all kinds of bending. We have a section on our site called braided transfer tubes, and we have some kits there that work real well in making this work. So we're going to go ahead and finish this up. Make this nice and tight. There we go. Now the air is going to be able to slide in here. What I'm going to probably do is I'm going to probably run this outside without the belt guard on, because I know that this belt's going to wear in a little bit, but I want to make sure that the belt guard is going to clear. And how are we going to end up here? So let's zoom it out, not in, and see where we end up with. Okay, we know that for one, the frame has not changed at all. The frame is the frame, so it will fit there. But you'll notice that my engine is a lot closer on this one, so I'm going to end up cutting this part out right here so that it'll get around the motor. And when I do that, it will end up being right about here. Now, if you notice, this is a little off from where the bolt was on the previous pump, but it's not off that much. So if we zoom in here a little bit, you'll notice that the bolt's off about 1/2 inch. But this is also, I can slide this around so that we can make sure, and I'm going to flatten this out so it attaches to this head bolt here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing running outside. By the way, your new pump does not come with oil, so make sure you put oil in it or you're going to buy yourself another new pump. Well, guess what? Even flattening out the bracket did not work. I am shy, about 3/4 of an inch. So I have this piece of scrap metal, but I'm going to go ahead and I took one of the pump bolt heads out, and I'll put this on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up bending this. It's kind of an L bracket, so it'll go on here, and then I'll end up fastening it over here. What I'll probably do is utilize this long slotted hole, or I could have got a piece of steel and drilled a bunch of holes and then ground it down like that, but I'm going to utilize that so it's adjustable. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark this where it needs to be, and I'm going to bend this down, cut it off, make a little L shape, and then refasten this so that this bracket does actually work. Alright, I created the little Z-bend so that I can put the bracket back on, drilled a hole in the end, and now I'm going to put the head bolt back in. By the way, when you take head bolts out, you need to get the torque specs for the head bolts. Typically with these small pumps, they're done in inch pounds. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our handy dandy torque wrench and look up the inch pounds for this particular pump. Set it to where it needs to be. Yep. That's it. I've almost had it. Perfect. So look for the torque on the head bolts and make sure you get that torqued back what it's supposed to be. And you'll also notice that I put the air filter in. This is a twist lock style air filter. It came with it. You can replace the filter element, which I suggest you do on any air compressor to keep the pump oil clean and the valves from getting damaged. Also, it has an oil sight gauge right here. This is a portable unit, so I typically fill these up a little over the red dot. It's supposed to be the middle of the red dot for this particular pump. But since this is a portable gas unit and is not usually on a level surface, I tend to fill these construction site units up a little bit past that. If it's a stationary unit in the garage, I fill it up right in the middle line with the red dot. Make sure to use fully synthetic pump oil for a brand new pump. You won't have to change it for a year unless you're in a really dirty, dusty environment. So as you can see, it really wasn't that complicated of a repair. The biggest thing for these is getting the pulley off your electric motor or your gas engine. And for us, we were very fortunate not to have to drill 4 brand new holes in the deck of where the pump was. But it's not that big of a deal. Typically, 3/8 inch bit is what most of the bolts take to be able to do that. What you want to do before you do that is put it in line with where the other pump used to be based upon where the flywheel sits. And if you have to drill 4 brand new holes, you're going to probably have to change, unless you're working with a flywheel that's the exact same size, you're probably going to have to change out the pulley in your electric motor anyway. But say for instance you were changing out a 10-inch flywheel pump with a 10-inch flywheel pump. Well, if you have to drill new holes, you can put that pump perfectly where the old one used to go, and you could possibly not even have to replace the belt or the pulley, but for most applications you're going to have to calculate what the RPMs of the new pump needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and put the belt guard on. I'm going to run it outside and I'm going to show you that it pumps up, and we have saved ourselves a bunch of money by simply replacing the pump with another pump that is very similar in CFM to the old one.